So now you should have Kali Linux installed and running. So now what I'm going to try and teach you is basically the basics and how to get around Kali Linux, right? Because it's a completely different system than Windows, for example. So basically what I will do is try and teach you the basics and give you some additional information. So make sure you basically watch my course from the start to the end, because obviously if you skip something, then you're not going to know something, and then you might have some issues later on. So the first thing we need to basically do, as you can see, there's some I have some files. You won't have them because obviously you don't get these by default. So what the first thing you should do is launch the command line, which is right here. This is called shell the terminal. And what we need to do now is basically I need to get you to understand how Linux works and stuff, right? So when you launch the terminal, you're basically your home directory, right? This is my home directory. Now you'll notice that I am in the home/Kali, which is me, but I'm not in desktop, right? So if I do ls, right, this is sort of my files, but as you can see, these files are not here, right? So if you go to open folder, as you can see, these files are here. So it's basically like Windows, right? We have our own files, but they're not on the desktop, right? So it's similar. So basically, if I go to cd desktop, right, and do ls, it will show me the files that I have on my desktop, right? As you can see, for example, click.zip is right here, right? Click.zip is right here, click.py is here. So we have basically this confirms that we're on desktop. How do we check again? Well, we put pwd, right? And obviously this confirms that we are on desktop. So I'm going to show you some commands, and hopefully you'll catch it on the first time. You might not catch it on the first time. It might take you a couple times and a couple trial and error, and you might get annoyed, I was there with you, right? I was there when I first started. As I said, I could not get nmap to run. I don't know why it wasn't running. I guess because I was putting maybe switches before even the command or something. I cannot remember, right? But trial and error and practice is what gets you the results, right? So we're going to clear the screen, and we do this by typing clear, and I'm just going to make this terminal bigger. To make the terminal bigger, you press Ctrl plus numpad plus, right? Or you can just go to view, and you can go to, pretty sure it's view. Yeah, sorry. So it's edit. It's not view. It should be view, but it's edit. So if you just put zoom in, right, Ctrl plus plus, as you can see, and zoom out is Ctrl minus, right? And zoom reset is Ctrl plus 0, right? So I'm just gonna leave it like this. Let me see. Yeah, it looks good. Okay. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna make a folder on our desktop, right? So what we're gonna do is cd. I'm gonna do, for example, Kali. Oh, sorry, mkdir Kali. Sorry, I did the wrong command, right? mkdir Kali. And as you can see, without me doing right click and create folder, we have created the folder, right? This is the power of command line. Command line is much way faster, and not necessarily safer, but I would say it's much faster than going manually, right? So it is a sort of plus. It also is more effective, because what you can do is, if you were to read a file, for example, if I want to read a file at etc proxy chains, I have to go manually and look for the file, right? And as you can see, I can be here till tomorrow, right? Where's proxy chains? I can't even see. Yeah, so you have to look for tomorrow, right? But if you go, for example, if I was to go to, for example, cat etc proxy chains conf4, as you can see, this is the Tor. Basically what happens is, proxy chains, what happens is it directs your traffic through dark web, through the Tor, right? I will talk about this later, basically for not necessarily for obviously illegal activities, but this is can be used for checking your firewalls if they're basically recognizing the malicious IP addresses, right? Because the Tor network is usually blocked by the big websites, and usually like Google gives you captchas and stuff, right? So this is important that your firewall or your whatever you're using, right, it is recognizing that this is malicious network, right? Malicious IP addresses. Right, so as I said, right, so we're gonna go is we're gonna go to Kali now. How do we go to Kali? We go to cd, which stands for change directory, Kali, right? And if you do ls, there's nothing in there, right? If you do ls hyphen la, there's nothing here, but it shows you basically more detailed, right? I'll go over this a bit later, but let's try and get the functionalities of Kali first. So if you do, for example, touch 123.txt, right? And if you do ls list, it shows you a file, right? But if you go to Kali and you go to the file, there's nothing here, right? Why is that? Well, because we haven't put infant in the file, but we can do this without going into the file directly. This is the beauty of Linux. Try and use the command line as much as you can and you'll learn so much things. Obviously, I would suggest creating a separate virtual machine for that, because if you, for example, put remove with a star, or you remove the wrong files, you can mess up your system, right? So I would set up a completely different virtual machine just to play it safe, right? Because then if you create it, if you mess up a virtual machine, it's not a big deal, but then you have to reinstall it, right? Plus also, if you have Virtual Machine Pro Workstation, you basically, what happens is you can do snapshots and right, and backups. So let's create some, right? So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna try and read the file, right? So we're gonna do cat basically reads the files of Linux, right? So if you do cat 123.txt, there's nothing in it, as obvious, right? Because there's nothing in it. But if you do, for example, nano 123.txt, it launches a text editor, right? It launches a text editor. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna put some text in it. So if you just, for example, hello, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. There we go. It's a bit laggy. I don't know why, but I think VMware has done something wrong with VMware program, right, software, because it's a bit laggy. And plus, also what happens is I had to downgrade from 17.5.0 because it wasn't working properly. So hello, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you do now, as you can see at the bottom, it says like up arrow, right? But if you do plus like shift and 6, it doesn't work. What happens is you need to press control, right? So every single function that has an up arrow is just control, right? So if you press control plus X and you press save modified buffer and you press Y for yes, and then you can rename the file, but I'm not going to rename the file. So just press enter. And now, as you can see, it did not display the file, right? So what we need to do is cat 123.txt, right? And as you can see, it displayed the file. Hello, please subscribe to my channel. Now, what we can also do, for example, this is useful whenever you're doing cracking hashes or cracking passwords, or maybe you just want to maybe save something quickly without using nano. What you can do is you can use echo, right? And as you can see, I had this ready, so we're going to use the same command, right? And echo test hacking, and what we're going to do is send it, right? Actually, no, we're going to send append, right? Because what we're going to do is we change the, right? So we're just going to add an additional arrow, and if you do cat 123.txt, as you can see, it appended. Appended basically it adds additional text. If I change, for example, right now I change it and I remove the arrow, right? You can see it's a bit laggy. I don't know why. I'll have to fix this somehow. So if you just remove one arrow and I send this and I do cat 123.txt again, it says, as you can see, we've changed it, right? So this is very, very important that you basically remember and pay attention to what you're sending, right? Because as I said, if you, for example, change the whole file and it's like a system file, you can destroy your system, right? So it's you need to be very, very careful what you're doing. And especially if you're maybe interacting with someone's computer, you know, maybe you pen testing, you need to be very, very careful with this as well. You should not really be modifying if you're doing pen testing, you shouldn't be really modifying files. You should download them to your computer, because, you know, it's safer if you download to your computer. You should also have backups, right, in place if you're doing pen testing. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we want to remove the file. Now we need to be very, very careful with remove, because remove is very also powerful, especially if you're using sudo. And also need to show you sudo which in a second, right? So if you do, for example, rm123.txt, it removes the file. But what happens if I was to make a new folder inside, for example, let's do test, and we're gonna create a file inside test, right? And we're gonna do touch 123.txt. We're gonna go back right? And how do you go back? It's just you press 2 dots, right? So CD, 2 dots. And as you can see, I will also show you, right? But I just want to show you the remove command. So if you do RM and you do test, it's not going to allow you. As you can see, cannot remove test as a directory. I made the wrong command. It'd be test, right? So RM-R test, right? And as you can see, remove the file. So as I said, remember, please be careful what you're doing, right? Because you do something which you don't want to do, right? We can also do, for example, if I go back to Kali, right? If I go back to Kali and I do, for example, let's create a file 123txt again. And what we're going to do is MV, right? So we're going to change the name because MV has 2 functions. MV, which stands for move, it can either move files or it can change the names of files, right? So this is basically very important we want to do, right? So we're going to just move this file to the desktop and then we're going to change the name of the file. So we're going to do this MV123txt. We're going to change the name first. We're going to change it to hi.txt, right? And as you can see, if you do mv123.txt hi.txt, it changed the name, right? How do you move the file, for example, to a different directory? Let's move this file to our desktop, right? So if you do mv hi, remember that you've changed the name, so now you need to call it hi.txt, not 123. That is gone, right? Now it's hi.txt. And if you do 2 dots, right, just like I showed you, as you can see, it appeared on our desktop, right? And you can also move it. All you do is if you do go to basically hi.txt and you move it back to Kali, right? As you can see, we just moved the file again, right? Now, I might have done something which is basically mind-blowing, but it's not. It is practice, right? So eventually what you're going to do is you're going to be able to do it faster and faster the more you practice, right? So as I said, practice and repetition is one of the most important things to do. All right. So just before I finish, what I want to show you guys is basically how to get the manual page or man page. Now, every single command on Linux and every single tool has a help page. It is basically, I've yet have to see a tool in Linux or a script in Linux without a help page, right? So if you do, for example, Hashcat, right? Hashcat is, as I said, it's a hacking tool in cracking passwords and hashes. And if you do --help, as you can see, it gave us a help page, right? And as you can see, it tells you every single thing. Now, this is something mind-blowing for you possibly, right? As you can see, there's so much stuff. Don't worry, I'll take you through every single tool in Linux that you need to know, and possibly some extra tools that nobody tells you about. So as you can see, there's a lot of options. Now, as I said, these are flags or switches. People call them different things. I like to call them flags. But in education, like in colleges and universities, I think they call them switches, right? I don't know why switches, but okay, whatever, right? So, and remember, please note that every single, like, things are case sensitive, right? So if you put -m, you cannot put capital M, right? So for example, if I was to do, what was the recommend? For example, if I was to do man help, right? As you can see, man shows you help, right? So as I said, look, and it tells you the usage of a command. I'll just make this bigger for you guys. Usage, and it gives you a usage option, section, page. And what is man? Man stands for manual. So for example, if I want to do manual and I want to see usage of Hashcat or extra information, what you can do is use man. So if I do man Hashcat, as you can see, it gives me name, Hashcat, advanced CPU-based password recovery utility, which basically means hacking passwords and hashing, cracking hashes. As you can see, Hashcat, options, hash file, mask, word files, directories. Description, options, right? As I said, make sure that whatever you're putting, it is what you're trying to, it is, right? Also has full versions, right? Some versions have shorter, for example, -h or --help, right? And there's basically shortcuts and full words, right? It is basically up to the file. If you press Ctrl+C, For example, as you can see, Control C does not work. What Control C does, it cancels commands in different scripts, and it basically cancels usually a program which you can exit. Now, as you can see, it says at the bottom, press H for help or Q to quit. So we need to press this Q, right? However, for example, if I want to maybe, there's not really a command I have in mind. For example, let's run a command. Let's run hashcat. Actually, no. Let's run burp suite, right? If I run burp suite, what's gonna do is launch. But if I go back to the terminal, press Control, it will cancel, right? I'll do this again. So if I do burp suite, and as you can see, if you go back to the terminal and I want to cancel, right? For example, maybe you've run a command and you want to change something. All you do is press Control C and it cancels it.